I'm good. How are you? Where are you?
Good. Great. I'm in New York.
Cool.
I was very surprised to see you were born here.
Yep. Were
That's
you?
awesome. Yeah. So congrats on the film. I really loved it. It was a very different spin on the Western genre, and you're all everywhere. You're not only a multi-talented actor, but you've explored photography, music, poetry, and you wear many hats. You're acting, directing, writing, producing. You even composed the score. So that's incredible. You were very involved in this project. This is also your second outing as a writer-director after Falling. Can you
Mm.
tell us what inspired this story, and the concept, and what made you kind of want to shift the focus of a typical Western to like themes of feminism and a female perspective?
Well, when I first started writing it, this story, I didn't have the title, and I also didn't know it was going to be a Western. I just started writing a story about a woman. Well, first little girl who becomes a woman who was very sort of free in her thinking and very independent minded, stubborn, and just tough, psychologically a tough person. Vulnerable also, but she has a special kind of courage and decency, right? And I thought, well, someone like that who's basically opening her own frontiers as a person just by being who she is, instead of having it set in our time, I thought it'd be interesting to put her on the Western frontier in the 19th century because that's a society, that's dominated, that's without laws really, for the most part, and that's dominated by just a few powerful unscrupulous men who are not against using violence to achieve their goals, right? And I thought, well, that'll really make it a bigger challenge for her to be how she is, more obstacles. And that's how it became a Western. And then I thought, oh, I like Westerns. I grew up watching them, and I'm going to try to make a classic Western, a movie that looks and feels like the best of the old Westerns, with the big difference that you have a female character as the main character. That's unusual. And that you stay with her throughout. You get to know her childhood, and you stay with her when her male partner goes off to war, for example. That's you never see that. And I just wanted to explore those things. What happens to women when that happens? What happens to little girls when that happens? And what do they do?
Yeah, Vicky was fantastic. She was absolutely incredible in this role. She really embodied, I think, everything you just mentioned. And like you said, that's not something you typically see in a Western, so I found that very empowering.
But yes, I was because you never know. They might not be available, the actress you have in mind, or they might not like the character in the story. But she loved it and said yes right away, and we knew, as a team, okay, now we can really. There's no limit to how interesting this character can be and how good our story can be. We just have to surround her with good actors, which we did, and tell the story well, and she'll do the rest. And she did. She's great.
Yeah, she really embodied it. And like I said, you wore many hats for this movie. How did you kind of, I guess, research and approach the role? Because also you're acting. So how does your acting experience help you behind the camera and also directing like your other cast members?
Well, I mean, some people think if an actor directs a movie, like Clint Eastwood or something, that it's automatically going to work and they're going to have an advantage in terms of communicating with actors and helping them. And that's not necessarily true. It depends what kind of actor you are. If you're an actor who's always just stays in their trailer, learns their lines, comes in, does what they're doing, doesn't matter what the other people are doing in a way. And sometimes people give good performances that way. You might not be that able to help other actors more than a director who isn't an actor because you've never really shown much interest in what the other actors have to say or what they're contributing. You just come in with your own plan. But if you're an actor, which I like to think I am, that's interested in how the story is told and hangs around the set and watches other people work and is conscious of the fact that what they're doing in the movie affects other people and what the other actors do and what the crew does affects your character, then you probably will because you've shown an interest in the team aspect or the of storytelling, right? So yeah, you have to be flexible, I think. every actor is different, whether they're a kid, whether they're an older person, whether they've acted little or a lot. Everybody's different, has different personalities, and every day they're they're different. You know, it depends how you wake up in the morning. And so you have to be open to finding a way to put that person at ease, because the most important thing you can do for an actor is help them feel relaxed, help them feel a part of their storytelling, and make it clear that you're open to their ideas too, so that it's a true collaboration.
And what do you hope that audiences will take away from watching this film? How do you think it's going to contribute to like a larger conversation within the industry?
Hmm. Well, maybe they'll make other westerns where women have significant roles. You know, there have been some before, but I mean, regular kind of ordinary woman. It doesn't have to be some superhero, super villain. You know, maybe it'll help in that regard, and consider what happens in stories to women, you know, living sort of ordinary lives when maybe all the action seems to be happening elsewhere. Maybe you don't have to go to that action. Maybe what's happening to them is just as interesting as what's happening to anyone else, for one thing. But I think overall, in terms of story, I feel that in this movie, forgiveness, which comes from trying to understand the other person, people who are different than you, forgiving them, forgiving yourself, you know, we all make mistakes and so forth. Forgiveness is much more important in this movie than revenge, or the desire for revenge is. Even though at the beginning you're thinking, okay, this is gonna be a classic Western revenge story, and let's see how that plays out. And there is an aspect of that to the story, but it's much more important, the idea of forgiveness and trying to understand the other person.
And lastly, you've done like a few period pieces and like working with different accents. Any challenges this time around, like making a Western and this kind of landscape? What kind of like Westerns did you, I guess, watch for like research, preparing for the role, writing and acting?
Well, I didn't model the movie after any particular one. I did try to be faithful to the style of classic Westerns, where you don't necessarily think too much about how the camera does what it does, how it sees things. You just simply have a kind of photography that's allows you to see the landscapes, the interiors of buildings, and see the characters on all the details in a sort of simple, elegant way. That was one thing I was trying to do. And but in the couple years while we were preparing this and looking for the money to shoot it in the locations, I watched all the movies I remember liking as a kid and as an adolescent, you know, Westerns. And then I watched anything else I hadn't seen. And even Westerns that are not good stories, there were details I could find. And I would share that with my team, you know, like I look at the lamps in this saloon and look at this old silent Western, which is much closer to the era that they were trying to talk about, you know, like movies from 1915 or something. That's only 2 or 3 decades after the events that they're portraying. So there you had some real authentic buildings, people who really knew how to ride horses, and just everything looked right. So we took images from there, ideas from there, and also a lot of photographs, you know, from the period, like from the Smithsonian collection. There's pictures of cowboys and miners and women, and lots of old photographs of buildings, also descriptions of people and the way they spoke back then. I thought it was important to get the diversity of the population right. Even in a small town, unless you're a Native American, you came from lots of different places, you know, to settle the West. And vocabulary, slang, the way people spoke, the accents, all that. We're real careful with that. Did a lot of research. That was fun.
Yeah, it was great. Like definitely like in the saloon, like you just mentioned, you can kind of see all the diverse characters and the way they interact, and speaking multiple languages was even like addressed, like many different things like that.
That's true.
Thank you so much. I think we're at time, but this was a pleasure. I love the movie. Congrats again.
Thank you, Nadia. I'm glad you liked it.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Yeah, you too. Yeah.